Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
Hello, welcome everybody. Again, my name is David. I'm facilitating today. We're glad to have you all here. There's 49 of us this morning, which is really wonderful. I want to welcome Ryuten Paul Rosenblum Roshi as our teacher today. And I'll give a little introduction. Ryuten Paul Rosenblum Roshi is a Dharma heir to Baker Roshi and assistant abbot at the ZBZS in Germany, I believe. I'm just going off the bio, I know. Good, where he's where he also leads seminars as well as seminars in Berlin and Vienna. He began practice with Suzuki Roshi at Tassajara Zen Mountain Center, where he lived and practiced for 10 years. And you can share more about yourself if you like, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you very much. Thank you for including me in this gathering and for each of you to make the time for us to be together. So we may say that Zen practice is about directly experiencing the most satisfying kind of aliveness. And the path of practice is about how we may go about realizing this possibility in our everyday lives, regardless of the circumstances, whether they're comfortable or whether they're challenging circumstances. There's a story about a fisherman in a remote village in ancient China. And as was the custom with people in the village, each day they would go to the mountain stream that ran through the main part of the village, and they would fish for their dinner. And one day this fisherman showed up. Rather than using the curved hook with a barb, he showed up with a straight hook. Began fishing next to his neighbors. And they all started to make fun of him. They said, what are you going to do with that? What are you trying to fish with a straight hook? And he said, you may catch an ordinary fish with your curved hook with a barbed on it. But one day I may catch an extraordinary fish with my straight hook. And it's said that he continued to fish in this way for 40 years. And news of this unusual fisherman and his way of fishing spread throughout all of China, even to the imperial court. And the emperor was very interested to see, what is this person doing? What's this straight hook fishing? So he gathered together an entourage. They traveled up to the remote mountain village. And of course, he arrives to see this now old man with his line fishing with a straight hook. And he said, old man, whatever were you hoping to catch with this straight hook? And he replied, I was hoping to catch you, dear emperor. So we take this time together this morning, sitting quietly, each of us on our own and all of us together, putting our hook in this water. What are we hoping to catch? Maybe some piece of understanding, clarity, insight. Maybe a relief from some difficulty or challenge we're facing. Maybe some way that we can help somebody who we care about deeply that's having some difficulty. We don't know what to do. Maybe we'll find some way we can really be of help and support. Maybe we don't know why we're casting our line into this water of meditation. Maybe it doesn't matter to us at all. And we can't know. I mean, this is a story, so we can't know what the intention really of this old man fishing in this unusual way was. Could he ever have imagined that he'd catch an emperor at the end of his straight hook? But there's the possibility in this slippery kind of situation where we're not leading into the moment with what we know, with what we understand, with what we think works, with what makes sense to us. We're entering the moment in a wider way, wider margins on how we're approaching. Again, this feeling of the most directly experiencing the most satisfying kind of aliveness. And it marks a shift. It's a shift from relying on our habits, on our past, our thinking, what we know, our associations, to entering the present situation in our experiencing of it, not just our ideas about it. So practice, the possibility practice, is not just to know ourselves as the idea we have of ourselves, but to know ourselves directly, which includes what's much wider than those ideas. We don't have to get rid of the ideas. We just don't have to be limited by them. We can be open to possibilities much wider than what we can imagine. The possibility of fishing in a way without a specific sense of what it is that we're going to gain, what the outcome is going to be. Being with you brings me to my great, dear Dharma brother, Isan Dorsey Roshi. Maybe some of you knew Isan. Maybe some of you know of Isan. I don't know. Do you know who this person is? Does this mean anything to you? So we were ordained together. He performed the marriage, my partner. And he was, for those that don't know, he was an extraordinary person. He was very interested in music and dance as a young person. Entered the Navy. Got kicked out of the Navy because he and his lover got kicked out of the Navy. Became a bartender in North Beach. His son he had great legs. He became a dancer, became a female impersonator, also became a junkie, founded a commune. And he was an extremely good practitioner and teacher. And even after when I was with him at Zen Center, we spent our first practice period at Tassajara together. He stopped using drugs, but Isan was always up for a good Tanqueray martini before dinner. No question. And as many of you know, he started Maitri, the hospice Maitri. And Maitri started because there was a young man named J.D. who lived in the laundromat around the corner from Hartford Street Zen Center. And J.D. had AIDS. They had no place to live, and he was living in the laundromat. And Isan brought J.D. home to the Hartford Street Zen Center and gave him a room. And this was the beginning of Maitri. And the Bay Area Reporter came to interview Isan about this movement that was becoming noticed particularly in the Bay Area, of so-called engaged Buddhism. And they asked Isan, well, what do you think about engaged Buddhism? How is what you're doing involved in engaged Buddhism? And he said, I don't really know so much about engaged Buddhism. I just know if somebody falls down, I help them get up. Fishing with the straight hook, not knowing what we'll get. Just the default position of what's right here, right now, in front of us. I joke, if you want to send a letter to the Buddha, where do you send the letter? What's the Buddha's address? It's not the past. It's not the future. It's not the present. You want to send a letter to the Buddha, you send it right here, right now. Somebody falls down, you help them stand up. And we had a meeting in the living room of Hartford Street Zen Center. That's where the board of directors of the Maitri Hospice used to meet. We had done meeting rooms, and we were getting requests to have people come who needed to come. It would be nice. They had to come. They needed a place to come. And we were threadbare. We had very little money. We could get through each month and we could feed some people, but we had no money. And as was Isan's way, we're meeting in the living room. So it's not like people are walking through and they're going and getting a cup of coffee. And there was somebody who said, oh, can I sit in the meeting? And Isan, as his way, he said, of course you can sit in the meeting. And he looked kind of threadbare, but he was very committed to JD and would visit JD most every day. And we thought we were worried about him. We thought he might be some homeless person who also needed some help. And the building next door to 57 Hartford Street would be a perfect place to expand. We could have at least 7 beds, and we wanted to do this. But we were at this meeting, and we were completely flummoxed. It's how are we going to come up with this? What will we do? And at the end of the meeting, this man came up to Isan and said, oh, I'll buy the building. We were shocked, and he did. And as some of you know, we broke through the living room and upstairs, and this was the beginning of Maitri Hospice, having a home on Hartford Street before its current home. No plan, no idea about doing something, simply no idea about helping people. His son didn't have an idea about helping people. And my experience those years at Maitri, and I would spend time just sometimes to sit with somebody, see if I can get them a glass of water, whatever I could do. And as many of you know, when a situation becomes challenging, there's no room for superficiality. There's no room for the bullshit. I remember once a young man came, Haitian, his name was Bernie, Bernie had the most fantastic, every time I would come, he'd have different color nail polish. And I think Bernie was never big, but he was thin as a pencil. And the first thing that he did when he got his room, he had somebody help him, and up above his bed, he had a banner which said Bernie's Party. Here's this guy who is as big around as my index finger, who's in a hospice, who wants to enjoy his life and enjoy my being with him. He's inviting me into his party, to Bernie's party. And Bernie was the first failure we had at the hospice, because Bernie got better. We could not nobody could figure this out, how he got better. And he, after about 6 months at the hospice, we said, Bernie, you're doing pretty good now. And he actually went back to Haiti. And after more than a half a year, I don't know what happened with Bernie. But there was the possibility to make contact in the midst of the challenges. Not rejecting the challenges, not saying they're not real, not trying to wish them away. Oh, it's going to be okay. The guy's in a hospice. There's no room to say, oh, it's going to be okay. But to meet the moment directly, including but not limited to all our ideas about it. So I feel some gift in my remembering his son this morning. All the times with him. He gave, when he performed the wedding for my wife and I, gave us a big, tall candle. And he said, every time you fight, you have to light the candle. He said, you can't go to bed in the midst of a fight. You have to light the candle together, okay? Because part of the wedding ceremony in Zen is each person brings up a taper and they light the main altar candle. And he said, and if it starts getting really low, you got to come and talk to me again. So on my altar today, seeing the candle his son gave us, feeling the presence of his son in my zazen earlier this morning. And simply and directly meeting the moment. How do we do this? My first teacher, Suzuki Roshi, said, moment by moment attention to breath and posture is true nature. I mean, this is extraordinary thing to say. True nature is not this big thing that's going to happen in our and everything. We're going to get 10,000 candle-lit bodhisattvas and they're going to raise us up to the heavens and it's going to... No, it's moment by moment attention to breath and posture is true nature. Articulating attention in each inhalation, in each exhalation, in each inhaling, breathing the world in, mixing it with what's here, then releasing it, returning it to the one that doesn't own it. It's marked by a shift from a reliance on thinking to settling in the present situation, the context as it exists now. We're not in a general space. We're not in a habitual space. We're not defined by a linear sense of continuity. We're not defined by a fixed identity. All these things are present. We don't need to reject them. We just don't allow them to define who we take ourselves to be in the moment. So for me, Zazen is the ritual expression of the fact that we can truly be who we are. In our magnificence, in all our failures, in all our challenges, in all our doubts, in our joyousness, in our connection. It's all rattling around in the heart, making one sound. The sound of each of us as we are, and each of us as we are together. So practice is fundamentally to move in accord with the fullness of the life that's already here. Somebody says to you, what's the best moment of your life? You think, oh, well, maybe when I'm able to get through the challenge. And Jason, please, I hope you get through this challenge with your aneurysm. When I get through the challenge, that's going to be the best moment of my life. Oh. When I'm no longer caught by my past, when I'm no longer trapped by my fears, my suspicions, the image I have of myself that limits me, that's going to be the best moment of my life. Zen practice is about making each moment the best moment of our life. Your address is the Buddha's address. Practice doesn't exist any place other than right here, right now. As wonderful and as crummy as that may be. And that's Bernie's party. Notice, Bernie was in the hospice. Bernie wasn't having a party on the street. Crumpled over. Bernie functioned intelligently. He knew he needed to be in the hospice. This was very important. There's a Sufi story about a very dedicated believer, practitioner. And he was asking God for some kind of sign, how to go, what to do, how to develop his way. And he had a dream. And the dream was, tomorrow, go to the forest. So he went to the forest near his home, wandering, looking for some sign. And he saw a legless fox by a large rock in a cool place by a stream. And he thought, how can this legless fox survive? So he sat at a distance and waited. And almost at dusk, a lion came. And the lion brought the fox some meat. And he said, I understand. The all-providing God will take care of all my needs and wants. Make everything complete and whole. And so he went home and he just waited. 2 days, 3 days, 5 days. And he was starting to starve. He was waiting for the all-providing, all-knowing, all-strong God to provide. And he had another dream that night. And the dream was, fool, be like the lion, not the fox. Function intelligently. To function intelligently is to give. It's to recognize the connection that we have with ourselves and with one another. When Suzuki Roshi first came to America, he was very surprised at how people handled things. And he would, when he would pick up or use something, he would do it with two hands. He said, in America, people do things with one hand. He was so surprised. And when he would give us something, he'd pass something, he would bring it into his body. Maybe, Kay, you're familiar with this as part of, it's cultural. But the understanding is beyond cultures. He would bring it into his body, and then he would pass it to us. See, he wasn't just passing a glass of water. He was passing himself. And the thing about the two hands are connected here. When you watch a 4-year-old with a big glass of milk, they take it with two hands. It's the attention not on us. It's the attention on the activity. Maybe you don't have two hands. There's a woman I practice with in Germany, and she I sometimes have the great good fortune. She's helps me with service, offering incense and arranging the altar, these things. She only has one hand. She's born with just part of one arm. And I learned, and we eat, and maybe some of you are familiar with in Zen, we have this impossible way to eat called oryoki. It's impossible to do it correctly. These nested bowls in a way that you open them and then you get things in them and then you clean them and then there are cloths and you fold them up again. And she does this with one hand. And I learned from her how to do things with the feeling of two hands, even if we don't have two hands. Whatever the challenge may be, to know that the hands, the arms and legs, everything is connected here. And when we don't have an idea so much of who we are, of what we're doing, when we allow that to be, I call this on our shelf. Okay, I can take this idea of who I am, I'm going to put it on the shelf, and now I'm going to proceed in the day and find out who, what, how this is today. When we don't have such a fixed idea, we can start to see ourselves in everything. We can allow the world to come forward into our experience. We can begin to feel when we pick something up, it's not just about us. It's not just about catching something at the end of our hook. It's about the aliveness that's present, waiting for us in each moment. And I'm grateful for the water. So we make this shift. We make a shift from associative thinking to our experience, our physical, our felt experience in the moment. Moving in accord with the fullness of life, which includes our limitations, but it's also not limited by them. We establish our practice in our difficulty. We don't wait for the difficulty to be over. And I don't mean to make light of the difficulty, but it's the soil of our practice. I had a great deal of physical difficulty sitting when I began. I couldn't get my knees down on the mat. Forget half lotus or impossible. I couldn't even get my knees down on the mat. Because it was actually support for me. And I saw over the years many of the students who had an easier time, who had great posture, could do all these things really well, much better than me. They left. I stayed. Couldn't do anything else. Couldn't do anything better. I stayed. My difficulties were the compost, the soil for my practice to grow. And so when another person falls down and we help them get up, it's helping ourselves to get up. There's a Bodhisattva's vows we chant in Zen practice. Sentient beings are numberless. I vow to save them. To save others is to save the self. To save the self, to take absolute, impeccable care of the self as it's appearing in this moment, is to take care of everyone. When we don't feel simply a separateness, we can be distinct in who we are. We're all, I look at all these tiles, we're all distinct. But we're also at the same time connected. It's not one or the other. It's not a binary decision. It's to know simultaneously the distinctness and the non-separateness. It's a feeling of not having to leave anything out. So when we pick up the glass, we pick up our heart. We pick up our connection with the world. When we put it down, we set it down with that kind of feeling. And I'd like to share with you, this is my secret sauce for practice. My wife and I enjoy very much, we go to the slanted door. Maybe some of you are familiar with the slanted door, special occasion. And we take the ferry. We live in Marin, and we take the ferry, and we go to the ferry building, and then we have lunch at the slanted door. And for those that aren't so familiar with it, it's a Asian fusion, Vietnamese, Charles Fanna's Vietnamese heritage restaurant. Fantastic, inventive, great food. And there's a mung bean crepe on the menu, and it's great. And I enjoy to cook, and saw online there was his recipe for the mung bean crepe. And I made an effort. It wasn't easy. I had to buy mung bean flour. I mean, the ingredients were not so easy to come by. Found all the ingredients, made the recipe. Failure. Couldn't make it. Tried several times. I thought, what am I doing? Why isn't this working? I couldn't make it. The next time we went to the restaurant, I said to the waiter, and we ordered the mung bean crepes. I said, I tried to make these crepes. Couldn't do it. He said to me, do you think he would share that recipe with the public? But I'm going to tell you my secret sauce, my secret recipe. All this stuff. Default position is not our individuality, but our connectedness. Having no gap between ourselves and others. Not having an idea of doing something, just simply doing it. Being engaged in this connectedness. And then we can't do it. We don't do it. It's not happening. It doesn't happen for 2 days. We totally forget. My secret sauce is then we have the opportunity to begin again. And we can begin again on each breath, on each inhalation. Articulating a world outside of our habits, our beliefs, our identities, our preferences. And then returning that to all of us together in this wide world, to the one that doesn't own it. So I'd like, please, to have some time to hear from you if you have any comments about your practice now, or anything that you would like to discuss, please. And David, can you handle how to do that?
Yes. Asa, I see. Thank you, Asa.
Hi.
Hello, Asa.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing pretty well.
Good.
How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I did have, when you talked about this no separation thing, the first thing that comes to my mind is the fact that the very definition, the very nature of being an American is to live in a separate society and live in a two-tier society, to live in a caste system. African-American people have been in a caste system for 400 years here. And so we live very comfortably with that separation. And I was just wondering if you had any thoughts about that.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yes, this is true. No question. And at the same time, we can also experience connectedness. So there may be structures, and the structures are not just personal structures. There are institutional structures that emphasize separateness. Doesn't mean we have to accept those. And beginning by not accepting them is not accepting them in myself, is experiencing the truth of the distinctions and the separateness. I mean, I'm not in Oakland right now. That's a fact. But I can also I have the gift through this technology that I can see you. At the same time, we're separate. But we can also at the same time be connected. So then we start to have a choice. Do we want to put our attention into more separateness? Into more distinctions? Into more stratification? Into more alienation? Or do we want to put our attention, because we got to start with what's happening now. That's what I meant by not to deny anything. But I can use what's here to try to create more connectedness, more a feeling of the relation, like I feel my hands aren't separate. My hands are connected right here. Both are true. Where do I want to put my attention? And what's interesting is when we start to make that choice, different things start to happen. And what happens is we don't look at the externals quite as much. We're all programmed. I mean, it's just the truth. That's called habits. But we don't have to be limited by the habits. The more we know our habits, the more they can be there and we can be free of them. I can mention a quick story. So I go to a Middle Eastern market. I said I like to cook. I really do like to cook. And I go to a Middle Eastern market. And I'm usually in California 3 months, in the temple in the Schwarzwald in Germany 3 months. I go back and forth. And there's a man who owns the store. And he said, I haven't seen you. Where have you been? And are you okay? Is everything? So I said, yeah. And I told him I was back from this 3 months when I was in Europe. And he said, what do you do? And I said, I practice meditation and I teach meditation. And he said, would you teach me to meditate? Well, let's get real here. I mean, what am I going to do with this guy, right? So he has 2 older children. He's about my age. Has 2 almost middle-aged kids. And he loves these kids. You can feel it. And then I said, maybe the best thing, the way I would teach you to meditate is treat everybody you meet the way you feel towards your children. What's that like? What's it like when people meet you and they may not like you? They may have an idea about you. What's it like when we recognize that? We're not foolish about it. But in our heart, we realize both hands are connected. And we start to treat others in that way. What ends up happening, it starts with we treat ourselves that way. The love starts when we treat ourselves that way. And people get it. But what's most important, I talked about the directly experiencing the most satisfying kind of aliveness in each moment. That's what's always available at the end of the straight hook. And it doesn't always work out. Doesn't always work out is this hand forgot that it's connected to this hand. They're separate. Sometimes it forgets. Say, what about me? Hey, come along with me. Then they can be connected again. Am I making sense, Asa?
Thank you so much. It's really helpful.
Thank you
Excuse
so
me.
much.
I want to thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah. Harley.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Sure.
I just really appreciate it. And I'm so moved by your telling the story and rekindling the spirit of Isan, which is such a dear spirit here in San Francisco. Again, I just want to share, I met him for the first time after I had been spending many, many months and travels in Japan and in Asia, Thailand. And I met him at Cliff's hardware store, this monk in his robes. And he was so full of excitement and energy and smiles and positivity. And I just was so amazed here on Castro Street. I didn't know who he was at the time. And we just started talking. I ended up talking with him on the corner of 18th and Castro for over an hour. And it was at that time he invited me to Hartford Center. And I just realized that how to integrate engaged Buddhism, gay Buddhism, thought, San Francisco culture, and how to integrate everything together. And it's been a big inspiration over all these years through when he was, until he got sick and how he dealt with that. But that it's such an inspiration still for the challenges we have today. I remember him and his life and his spirit and his energy. So thank you so much for sharing.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you.
I'd just like to second that. My introduction, one of the first books I ever read about Buddhism was Street Zen. And went to Hartford Street, and I never knew him. I was much later. But I so love hearing stories, Harley's and yours, about him and his life. I've heard Richard Baker talk about him. He was a bodhisattva and an icon for our community. So thank you so much for sharing. It's quite I know it's not quite, it's a Christmas present in a way, your whole talk. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome. If I could add one other story. When Isan was diagnosed with HIV, he said, "Oh, that makes complete sense. That's my community. Of course I should have HIV." And he once, if I could add one other thing, he was invited to a symposium, and Isan was not a symposium kind of guy, at the church across from the Fairmont Hotel. Is that Grace Cathedral? I think so. He was invited there, and it was about AIDS and God. And Isan got up and he said, "AIDS is God." That's all he said.
Jeff had his hand up.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for a wonderful talk, Roshi. You used the expression a few times, who we are. I want to ask you, who do you believe we are?
Who we are is continually, miraculously, mysteriously changing. Mm-hmm. And change doesn't mean that something's taken away. Change means innumerable possibilities that are present in each moment. So I'm meeting the Jeff that I've had some emails with, but I'm also meeting the Jeff that in relationship to me now is becoming in ways that I can't imagine.
Always fresh.
Jason also had his hand up.
Hello, Jason.
I kind of have I've been doing a lot of, self-work lately, and it's been very intense. And I met this really fantastic guy who is absolutely gorgeous, very fit, and he claims to be like, he's like, I'm in love with my true self, and yada yada, and I'm fighting the stranger. I'm like, what stranger? Like the Kamui version, the stranger, or the Billy Joel version? Is that we all fall in love and just yeah. But you never let your lover see the stranger in yourself. So the thing was, I basically think I have most of the low frequency stuff under wraps, except jealousy. I know I can't escape it. It's just it's just how it is. So I watch I'll look on Facebook and I'll see a bunch of friends all together with their shirts off and they're in wherever, Mexico or whatever. I'm jealous. I'm so jealous. It hurts my soul and I have to let it go. Yep. Breathing out through the nose doesn't help, Yeah. Mm-hmm. I just want your mom will come over to the bed because you just got heartbroken and you want to go to prom with someone and she doesn't know what to say. So she just rubs your back. That's it. That's so special and beautiful. I just need somebody to rub my back.
Yeah.
Yeah, life is suffering. They were right about that. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sorry. Mm-hmm.
Please don't apologize. There's no need to apologize to me.
Thank you.
If I may make a suggestion, please.
Yes, please. Mm-hmm.
Your beads.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about them?
You might consider. I don't want to get into all my history, but I'm a bleeder. I'm a hemophiliac.
Oh no.
And I'm in the hospital. I mean, I'm a regular. I know the drill.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes I don't have energy to do anything.
Yeah.
Nothing. But what you may consider doing, and it's not to get rid of these feelings. It's not, I shouldn't be jealous. Why am I jealous? Your lower frequencies are in good shape. No, this is what's happening. Can you take care of your jealousy as if it's as precious as your own hearing, your own eyes? And a way I encourage you to do it, and I know this from my own experience being in the hospital a lot, is to allow your shoulders to count your beads. Can you imagine this? You don't have to do it with your hand.
Oh, wow.
It means your whole body is counting. When my beads are in my pocket, my pocket's counting the beads.
Nice.
When my beads are in my hand, when my beads are by my shoulders are counting my beads. It means in the midst of, and just the mention you made I think it was to Mike, I appreciated his asking at the beginning before our meeting. you have a challenge right now. It's not to deny the challenge. It's not to forget your practice, to allow your shoulders to count the beads. You're feeling the jealousy. You're looking at the picture on Facebook and you're seeing all these gorgeous people and you're thinking, ah. To allow your shoulders to continue to take care of your practice. Does this make any sense to you? Does this seem possible?
Yeah, it seems possible. The circumstances were that I was paralyzed, and I haven't walked yet, like officially. But I'm getting there. Little bit at a time. They were impressed because I could go like this, like with my feet in the walker. I'm like, oh, why didn't you say walk like a velociraptor? Why did you say that? I could do that. Anyway. So I will be able to walk again. I know I can feel it actually. The left leg, because it happened on the right, so my left leg like shakes. Ooh, like that. It's kind of fun actually. It's kind of shaking right now. Gotta laugh about it, I guess, Yep. Mm-hmm.
I don't know that you have to laugh about it. I know that you don't have to leave your experience of yourself. That's always possible.
Yep.
Sometimes it's not a laughing matter.
That's true. That's very true.
But it's always the possibility to return. This is my secret sauce. To return to your experiencing your preciousness as an individual and connected in each moment. And this is why I say, let your beads, let your shoulders count your beads. It means you don't have to lose your practice.
Got it.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'll work on it. I'm working on it.
Well, thank you, Ryuten Paul Roshi. Thank you very much for your teachings. And for everybody who was here in the space with us today, for those who had questions, those are helping all of us learn and grow together. And we always encourage everyone who are able to offer dana to support this work. This keeps the work going, including the quarterly newsletter and dana for our teachers. Yes.
I didn't know about dana, and I would like whatever dana would ordinarily go to me to go to your organization and please.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's very generous. Thank you very much. Thank you.
And I would like, if I could, to make a dedication. There's that possibility.
We're at that time, so I'll pass it on to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please.
All beings, 10 directions, 3 times. All Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas. Wisdom beyond wisdom, Mahaprajna Paramita. Thank you all very much. Thank you, David. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you each. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Mark. Thank you each.
Thank you.
Thank you, Roshi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Roshi.
Thanks,
Bye.
David. Thank you.
Oh.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.